Today we're going to talk about the 6 ways to optimize your physical records collection. For more than 60 years, we've helped our clients organize, manage, and access their critical information in physical collections and physical records. Over the last 60 years, we've learned many helpful tips to help manage and optimize the physical collections that we're going to share and talk about today. For most of us, our physical records are the largest collection of information our companies access today. They are support for our daily business functions and act as evidence and documentation to defend those activities. When organized correctly, they add value to our daily activities and our organization. And when used efficiently, we can help manage the cost to store, access, and control these key assets. There are several ways to manage the critical information. And in essence, if we need to find it, we need to find it quickly and accurately to help the business flow. We're going to review classification of these physical files, talk about the value of centralizing any stored collection. We're going to talk about file tracking software and how it can support your overall function. Talk about the standardization and improvement of supplies that you might be using. We're going to talk about how to optimize that space in which we store the information, and also paving the way for an eventual or future prospect of digital imaging. We're going to start with the right classification system. The right classification system really becomes the common naming convention on how we identify any official record in our collection. So it's a common way of grouping these records, and it acts as the basis for compliance, for risk management, and the retention periods and security safeguards against the physical information. More importantly, when it comes to your physical files, it will help drastically reduce the retrieval and refiling times, because everything will be managed in a clear, logical way that makes the information easy to find and difficult to misplace. So here's how it works on a high level. Basically, we look at your business activities and the records that support them, as well as talking to the people who use those records and access the information. And from that, we develop a classification scheme based on this information as a better way to organize. The system then is applied against every piece of information across the organization to ensure that the record is classified according to one intelligent framework. Next, we're going to look at centralizing the classification in one file collection. By bringing together otherwise small groups of file, the centralization project can provide tremendous return on investment by improving user efficiency, space utilization, security, and help support legislative compliance. If you have all of your physical files in one location, it's easier to manage and control them, and that the obvious benefits when it comes to optimizing the physical records. It's also true that centralized filing can make file content much more reliable. At the document level, any one record can take on a very different context when combined with other records. So consolidating all the records related to any given business activity, transaction, or process, every user of that file has a complete picture of that base of business in which to perform their own transactions. This is even more important when it comes to living documents. By this I mean a living document could be a contract. It's output in its physical form, and it might even bear a physical live signature. Year 2 or year 3 of that contract might introduce addendums to the contract, which then become part of the official record. So we want to make sure that the information can be uploaded and accessed and kept current so the official record is visible at all times. So this also improves user efficiency, with users expecting to collaborate on a given project or given information based on consistent information that's accessible to everybody with authorized permissions. So for many of us, managing physical records is becoming an increasingly large challenge. Staffing changes, storage issues, accountability practice, or simply the increased volume of records is making it difficult to keep the information you need at your fingertips. While we have the onset of a lot of additional information being created electronically, it's also true that over the last 5 years, we've had a 182% increase in paper production. So the challenges just continue to grow. File tracking software is the quickest and simplest, most efficient way to access information and shorten retrieval times. For example, users can request or access a file by not physically going to the file room, but doing it online. And at that point, they can be told whether or not a file is in or out. If a particular file is out of the file room, they can get their name on the request list. So the moment it's back, it can be routed, saving precious time. It also can help track physical items to their point of destination. And information contained in a barcode tracking system can also help us manage those physical files by telling us when certain records are due for destruction, or if they've lived past their useful life and become less active or inactive records, but still need to be retained for retention purposes. Any good tracking system is going to have core functionality, including barcode tracking functionality, intuitive query and search modes, filter functions, scripting for workflow, audit and request, signature pad integration, and barcoded, color-coded label outputs, the very basics of a good system. The benefits of getting the system are huge because folders and groups of folders and boxes can be quickly located, tracked, and managed. You can automatically manage user requests. You can advise status of whether a particular item or document, even a file or box is in the file room. And you can eliminate the prospect of lost files. Nobody loses a file. We understand they simply misplace them, but it can help with that challenge too. By standardizing your supplies across the organization, you make finding the files and the information much quicker. We all know the prospect that around the world, if we see an octagonal red sign, we know that means stop. Similar attributes can work in the file room, where a red label or a green label can mean something very meaningful to the users, such as an accounts receivable file or a specific vendor file. So color recognition is essential for easy retrieval and access. Obviously, that logic can extend things when you add barcode quality across the organization, where individuals can check in and check out. And files can be spotted out of the file room even if they're lying on somebody's desk. If you take the prospect of color coding your entire collection, you can see the elements of color expressed from a distance without having to go to the actual file and read the file folder name. So color coding is an excellent prospect to help standardization. Efficiencies can also improve by leveraging the cost of acquisition for folders and for labels. It also eliminates the need for pull-out shelves because they're perfectly readable at a distance. End-tab filing makes the opportunity to file vertically as well, taking advantage of vertical filing space as well as compacting your storage space dedicated for records. Now finally, space optimization is a challenge for most records managers today because we are being asked to store more and more in either the same space or give up some of that storage space for more revenue-producing real estate. Making sure that your storage space is maximized is essential because the physical records play an important part to the overall records management program. There's no single one way to address the challenge of space, but taking a multiple prong approach is what works best. What is needed is a very comprehensive look at the total solution. So by having more material stored in a smaller footprint and taking advantage of vertical space, you can increase your space allocation by up to 60% by using high density or even mobilized storage solutions. And then finally, making sure that what is being stored is truly and only your record material. Making sure that any non-record material is purged before it is filed. Making sure that information, duplicate and replicate information of a given record also is not stored against your corporate records retention policy. And then finally, making sure that when the system suggests purge or destruction life, that those activities happen timely and quickly, so that you're only paying for storage space for records that you truly need and need to have access on site. To close, I'd like to point out another aspect that a lot of people overlook when optimizing their physical collections. Obviously, optimizing files can make a big difference in every records management program and make your information easy to retrieve and readily retrievable for the information and the knowledge workers who need it. But more importantly, when you save time and money on space and you make it easier to find the information that you have, you are simply paving the way for an eventual or a future digital conversion. Only converting what you need, only converting official records, and keeping that information accessible prior to the conversion will simply save time and money at the point conversion transpires. If any of you have questions about the format or the contents of this information, any of my colleagues or I am happy to answer questions you might have. Thank you so much for attending.